Hello everyone, welcome in. This is section 3.2, Character Design Part 2, Style and Details, and HAVTZA's Coloso class, Step-by-Step Guide to Indie Animation Production. So welcome in guys, it's been a little bit. I just celebrated 100 subscribers on the channel. Thank you all so much again for the milestone. Very exciting, and I'm looking forward to the future ones that we hit as well. So good stuff. I've been focusing on fixing out my content, expanding into different categories. I'm also probably going to be live streaming consistently, most likely Saturdays because I normally have the evenings off. So I can do some live streaming for you guys, talk to you guys in free chat, or while I'm working and just help answer questions, or just have fun with you guys and talk to you guys in real time. So looking forward to that as well, and just expanding into different reaches for my channel as we start moving forwards. As always, you can help with further subscriber milestones if you haven't already to subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you like getting notified for videos. I personally don't, but if that's your thing, feel free to. But as for the notes for this lecture, this was mainly about the 3 types of style and details you will consider when animating, and the things that will actually help bring a lot of characteristics to your characters while you're animating them, which is going to be clothing, the face details, and the hair as well. So most of the lecture can be broken down into these 3 parts, as HAVTZA did as well, as we begin to go over them. So getting right into the notes, clothing design can reinforce the intentions of the character design or revert the expectation by subverting the clothing design from the shape of the body. So naturally you can imply different body shapes depending on the outline of the clothing, because that'll change the overall figure of the silhouette. So a good way to determine if the clothing choice is doing either of these is to observe the change in the silhouette, and if it creates a differing impression than the silhouette you created from just the character alone. Keep in mind, character silhouette does not need to be iconic as most people think, as clothing choices can help supplement the strength of your character overall. In the drafting stages of clothing design, focus on the simple shapes and relative sizing of each part of the outfit rather than the finer details. Same thing for character design, we're focusing on just making sure that impression is strong first, and then refining the character later. Clothing folds will generally fall around a character's body volume and follows the basic shapes. Keep in mind you can also look up how clothing works in illustration and follow the same basis, but folds are a little bit more complicated because we're animating them rather than just drawing them in one view like illustration. Tension folds are made where the clothing will hang from, or that a body part interrupts the flow of it hanging, and then from there you can draw a line to connect to the fold with the rest of the material that's angled in consideration of the body part it's hanging from. A good example of this is like if you hold your elbow up and you're wearing a long sleeve t-shirt, you're going to naturally have clothing that dangles from the elbow, but because you're holding your elbow out away from your body, the fold is going to be drawn down alongside of the elbow for the material, connecting to the rest of the material near the torso, and it's going to be angled in that direction wherever it is from. So just think the material is always relative to the points that it's closest connected to and where the material is most in mass. Like said, because we're considering this an animation and not illustration, you don't want to add too many folds, as they're harder to animate and they're more difficult to animate smoothly. Folds are generally meant to just indicate the direction of the volume rather than imply everything about the material. Remember, animation is first and foremost a movement medium, and second, a visual one. Softer fabrics will generally have more folds, while tougher fabrics will have an easier time conforming to the body volumes, as always. And then clothing design should not clip into itself due to a limited range of motion. Because we are working in animation, we have a lot more expression with the irregularity and body shapes that we can use. Just keep in mind when those irregular body shapes have clothing on top of them, that it's not going to be clipping into itself while you animate. And then consider decals and details within the animation process, because it's always better to simplify than overcomplicate them. So remember, however many details you choose to animate are going to be the ones you're stuck with for the rest of the animation. So making sure you're picking them considerably and keeping them in mind for the rest of the animation you have ahead of yourself in the drafting process is very, very key. Moving on to the face, extra care is needed as identification of the eye usually starts at the face for recognizing a character. And understanding the placement of the facial features will actually help to keep the character's face consistent and making sure that you're keeping on top of their expressions as well. If pressed for time, face consistency should take priority above most other things, even though you ideally want all of these to be consistent following these guidelines that we have been outlining in the previous sections and in this one. If needed, you can break down the face into simple shapes like we do with clothing and body shapes. You can add them into perspective and then use the volume to add facial features. This is a very simple 3-step process you can use if you're still a little bit new and breaking into drawing faces. Variations in location and size of facial features will help create facial variations. And keep in mind the range of movement of the character's facial features as well, because generally squishy and round faces will have a greater range of movement, while stricter and harder faces will display more volume, and ideally you want to strike a balance between these two. Like I said, animation, we can kind of push the envelope a little bit on sort of irregular body shapes and styles, as well as facial types and styles. But keep in mind, because it's animation, my greatest consideration must be range of movement. Lastly, as for the hair, just a couple things. Middle length hair will actually have the greatest amount of range of motion for dynamic volume. HAVTZA kind of goes over why short and long hair each have their own consideration when animating, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult to consider one or the other as better. Generally, middle length hair, she says, will have the best balance between the two for both expressing your character the best way possible and keeping a solid range of motion for animating. And then hair will be animated in groups, like we do when drawing anime style hair, with smaller groups having more movement. And then lastly, just some final notes here. Details should be created in a way that makes them easy to replicate and recreate in action. Like said, whatever details you choose to add into your character in the small details, the clothing, the face, the hair, whatever, they're the details you're gonna have to be stuck animating for the rest of your process, so keep that in mind. After creating a base, a colored sketch of the character or a cleaned line art character design sheet with color will help with consistency. Like said, she also mentions if you're really confident in your sketch, you can just color over the sketch, but she recommends just cleaning it up with line art first before doing so, making sure that the lines are consistent and portray their sizing very, very intentionally. Focus on character coherency and balance when adding colors as well, don't be overdoing it. And then if working independently with free design choices, avoid sharing common colors between backgrounds and characters because you want your characters to stand out from the background, obviously. You don't want them morphing into the scene and making your whole scene look homogeneous while you animate it. And then a quick summary of all this that HAVTZA actually stated, so it makes this easy on me. Character details will heavily influence the impression and animation of a character. You want to center your character design around the consideration of the production and the animation that you're making, and to use a character design sheet to establish a base of consistency across scenes. And then the self-assigned homework that HAVTZA actually recommended too, so really awesome that she's recommending a forward-thinking process for different types of projects that we can take on while implementing her lessons, is to add clothing, hair, and color to the character design sheets we made in the previous section in 3.1. And you want to focus on consistency of character silhouette and volumes between each pose that you've drawn on there so far. And then for better practice, you can attempt to draw the character without using direct reference and keeping clean lines, or without the ability to erase in general, which will help train drawing the character consistently for more efficient animation. So keep in mind when you're animating, you're not just going to be able to copy whatever layer you have the character sheet on and then draw from there. You're going to have to visually look at it, reference it, and then draw it from scratch over and over again, unless you have very, very consistent scenes that you can copy and paste from. So a good idea is to train your ability to visually look at something and replicate it really, really quickly and accurately as well. And then that's what this second half that she recommends is going to train. But for now, if you're not really comfortable with doing that, you can just focus on the first half of the self-assigned homework. So that was section 3.2, just building upon the work that we've done in 3.1 so far, and really building up the character design sheet that we've made in order to continue our indie animation process for ourselves. Next, we're going to be moving into background, so really important stuff. Make sure you guys are tuning in if you want your character to fit within the scene of a context for your animation, and hopefully we can start developing that into our self-assigned homework as well. Keep in mind you can keep on top of uploads like these and further ones on all of my social medias. I'll link them all around here, as well as my new Discord server, which I just recently made. You guys can join it, invite all your friends, and pop in with me, and feel free to chat with me live most times, as I'm normally on Discord anyways. So feel free to pop into the server, say hi, and ask me any sorts of questions you may have. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this Coloso lecture review, and I hope to see you in the next one in HAVTZA's course so far. I hope you guys have a good day, and make sure to take it easy. Bye-bye now.